Chapter 13. Summary. A fight with a god, a guest, a meeting with a few others, the waiting. They landed in the Santa Monica Bay, near enough to the pier that Percy could easily lug himself and Grover to safety. He rested there on the end of the pier after ensuring Grover was dry, trying to shake the chill from his bones. "Percy!" Warm arms embraced him, Parchment and Owl. "Annabeth," he breathed. He turned to accept her hug. "Thank the gods," she said. "I'm glad you guys are safe." "Yes, A groan broke through the air. Percy's eyes lit up. "Grover!" The satyr had rolled to his side, eyes fluttering open. He was frozen for a second, before everything seemed to hit him and he jerked up. "Percy!" he cried, and dove into their hug. Percy laughed, and Annabeth followed as they were looked over. "We're okay!" Grover exclaimed, finally sitting back from his inspection. "We did it! Not entirely, but we're getting there." "We've got time," Annabeth agreed. "Can you guys explain what happened after I had to leave?" They quickly explained what had happened with the shoes, and Percy took over from there when Hades had saved them. She made a noise of disbelief in the back of her throat. "I'm glad he helped you, though I am surprised." "I was too, honestly," Percy agreed. "But I'm thankful. I think him being more aware helped cool his anger before we got there." "Like when you mentioned him by name to the war god?" Annabeth murmured. Percy nodded. "Speaking of..." He got up and helped them to their feet. "It's time to find us the god that started this mess." "Wait!" Grover looked between the two. "You mean..." "Yes," Annabeth confirmed. "The prophecy was right," Percy said. "You shall go west and face the god who has turned." But it wasn't Uncle H. Uncle H doesn't want a war among the big three. Someone else pulled off the theft. Someone stole the bolt and the helm and framed me because I'm Poseidon's kid. Father gets blamed by both sides. A three-way war. And who else would be enticed by war other than war himself? The wind helpfully blew the smell of cinnamon, fire, Jolly Ranchers, blood, and dog his way. And there was the god, waiting for them on the sands of the Santa Monica beach, in his black leather duster and sunglasses, an aluminum baseball bat propped on his shoulders, his motorcycle rumbling beside him. Its headlight turned the sand red. "Hey, kid," Ares said, seemingly genuinely pleased to see him. "You were supposed to die." "Hades is not a fool," Percy answered coldly, "and neither am I. You stole the helm and the master bolt." Ares grinned. "Well, now, I didn't steal them personally. Gods taking each other's symbols of power, that's a big no-no. But you're not the only hero in the world who can run errands. I'm sure you won't give away who. Doesn't matter. The point is, kid, you're impeding the war effort. See, you've got to die in the underworld. Then old Seaweed will be mad at Hades for killing you. Corpse Breath will have Dad's master bolt, so Dad will be mad at him, and Hades is still looking for this." The air was heavy. From his pocket, he took out a ski cap, the kind bank robbers wear, and placed it between the handlebars of his bike. Immediately, the cap transformed into an elaborate bronze war helmet. "The Helm of Darkness!" Grover gasped. "Exactly," Ares said. "Now where was I? Oh yeah, Hades will be mad at both Zeus and Poseidon because he doesn't know who took it. Pretty soon we got a nice little three-way slugfest going." Percy had to wonder how stupid Ares could be. "But they're your family," Annabeth protested. Ares shrugged. "Best kind of war, always the bloodiest. Nothing like watching your relatives fight, I always say." "Oh yeah, sure. And the humans and demigods would be caught in the middle." "Father," Percy thought, "Uncle Hades, I hope you're listening to this nonsense. Be better than this." "You gave me the backpack in Denver," Percy said, "just to tie up all the loose ends. The master bolt was in there the whole time." "Yes and no," Ares said. "It's probably too complicated for your little mortal brain to follow, but the backpack is the master bolt sheath, just morphed a bit. The bolt is connected to it, sort of like that sword you got, kid. It always returns it to your pocket, right? Percy wasn't sure how Ares knew that and honestly didn't care for the answer. Ares had quickly cemented himself as one of Percy's least favorite cousins. Anyways, Ares continued, I tinkered with the magic a bit so that the bolt would only return to the sheath once you returned to the underworld. You got close to Hades? Bingo, you got the mail. If you died along the way, no loss, I still have the weapon. Percy's head tilted. Interesting. But why not just keep the Master Bolt for yourself? Percy asked. Why send it to Hades? Ares got a twitch in his jaw. For a moment, it was almost as if he was listening to another voice deep inside his head. Why didn't I... Yeah, with that kind of firepower... He held the transfer 1 second, 2 seconds. Percy exchanged a frown with Annabeth. Her eyes were dark in thought. Ares' face cleared. I didn't want the trouble. Better to have you caught red-handed holding the thing. What a cute little explanation. You're lying, Percy said easily. Sending the bolt to the underworld wasn't your idea, was it? Of course it was. Smoke drifted up from his sunglasses, as if they were about to catch fire. You didn't order the theft, Percy guessed. Someone else sent the hero to steal the 2 items. Then when Zeus sent you to hunt him down, you caught the thief. But you didn't turn him over to Zeus. Something convinced you to let him go. You kept the items until another hero could come along and complete the delivery. That thing in the pit is ordering you around. I am the god of war. I take orders from no one. I don't have dreams. Gotcha. Who said anything about dreams? Ares looked agitated, but he tried to cover it up with a smirk. Let's get back to the problem at hand, kid. You're alive. I can't have you taking that bolt to Olympus. You just might get those hard-headed idiots to listen to you. So I'm going to have to kill you. Nothing personal. Percy tensed. The god snapped his fingers. The sand exploded at his feet, and out of it charged a wild boar, even larger and uglier than the ones whose head hung above the door of Cabin 5 at Camp Half-Blood. The beast pawed the sand, glaring at Percy with beady eyes as it lowered its razor-sharp tusks and waited for the command to kill. Percy stepped into the surf. Fight me yourself, Ares. He laughed, but there was a little edge to his laughter, an uneasiness. You've only got one talent, kid, running away. You ran from the Chimera, you ran from the underworld. You don't have what it takes. The smile that crossed Percy's face was unfriendly, a jagged, twisted thing that, though Percy didn't know it, resembled his father when he was in a cruel mood. Ares tensed. That's an interesting way to put things, Percy said, considering the Chimera is dead and Uncle let me leave. My, one could almost say the god of war is scared. In your adolescent dreams, but his sunglasses were starting to melt from the heat of his eyes. No direct involvement. Sorry, kid, you're not at my level. Percy would force him to be. Percy, watch out! The giant boar charged. Father, Percy thought, eyes swirling, a sacrifice for you. As the boar rushed him, he uncapped his pen and sidestepped. Riptide appeared in his hands. He slashed upward. The boar's severed right tusk fell at Percy's feet, while the disoriented animal charged into the sea. A wave, high and dark, despite the pink sky, curled over it like a blanket. The beast squealed in terror, then it was gone, swallowed whole. Percy had not turned from Ares. Are you going to fight me now? He demanded to know. Or are you going to hide behind another pet pig? Ares' face was purple with rage. Watch it, kid. I could turn you into... A cockroach? He interrupted, smiling. Still smiling. Or a tadpole. Yeah, I'm sure. That'd save you the fight, wouldn't it? How interesting. The god of war, running from battle. It felt like they were being watched by more than the sea, by more than the darkness below. They had an audience. Percy would give them a show. Percy would give them a warning. Flames danced along the top of Ares' glasses. Oh man, you are really asking to be smashed into a grease spot. If I lose, turn me into anything you want. Take the bolt, Percy offered. If I win, the helm and the bolt are mine and you have to go away, cousin mine. Ares sneered. He swung the baseball bat off his shoulder. How would you like to get smashed, classic or modern? Percy showed him his sword. "That's cool, dear boy," he said. "Classic it is." The baseball bat turned into a huge two-handed sword. The hilt was a large silver skull with a ruby in its mouth. "Percy," Annabeth warned, "he's a god." "And I'm a demigod," he told her. "If anything, he should be terrified." "Just," she sighed, shaking her head at his intensity, "be careful. Know that I stand behind you." "The satyrs," Grover nodded, "stand with you too." "Thanks," he said, and meant it. "Stay away from the water." Their eyes widened, and they scrambled further up the beach. "You all done saying goodbye?" Ares came towards him, his black leather duster trailing behind him, his sword glittering like fire in the sunrise. "I've been fighting for eternity, kid. My strength is unlimited, and I cannot die. What have you got?" "So much more than he should." He kept his feet in the surf, backing into the water up to his ankles. The waves lapped at him in encouragement, fueling him. The god cleaved downward at his head, but he wasn't there. Percy's body moved for him. The water pushed him into the air, and he catapulted over the god, slashing as he came down. But Ares was just as quick. He twisted, and the strike that should have caught him directly in the spine was deflected off the end of his sword's hilt. He grinned. "Not bad, not bad." Ares slashed again, and Percy was forced to jump back onto dry land. He tried to sidestep, to get back to the water. But Ares seemed to know what he wanted. He outmaneuvered him, pressing so hard, Percy could only focus on not getting sliced into pieces. Percy kept backing away from the surf, with no openings to attack in sight. Ares' sword had a reach several feet longer than Riptide. Luke's voice curled in Percy's ear, whispering the rules of war. A plan formed. It was dangerous, stupid. "Note their movements. Getting close." He sidestepped in, bracing for impact. Ares followed through, whirling to the side. He knocked Riptide from Percy's hand and kicked him in the chest. Percy went airborne, crashing to the ground several feet away. Back towards the water. "Percy!" Annabeth yelled. "Cops!" His chest felt like it had just been hit by a battering ram, but he pushed himself to his feet. He didn't dare look for Ares, but out of the corner of his eye he could see red lights flashing on the shoreline boulevard. Car doors were slamming. "There, officer!" someone yelled. "See?" A gruff cop's voice. "That's a kid. What the heck?" "That guy's armed," another cop said. "Call for backup." Percy rolled to one side as Ares' blade slammed the sand. He ran for his sword, scooped it up, and launched a swipe at Ares' face, only to find his blade deflected. He stepped back toward the surf, forcing the god to follow. "Admit it, kid," Ares said. "You got no hope. I'm just toying with you." "Yes, but so was Percy." This was almost fun. His senses were working overtime. He now understood what Annabeth said about ADHD keeping you alive in battle. He was wide awake, noticing every little detail. He could see where Ares was tensing. He could tell which way he would strike. At the same time, he was aware of Annabeth and Grover, 30 feet to his right. He saw a second cop car pulling up, sirens wailing. Spectators, people who had been drawn by the noise, were starting to gather. Among the crowd, he could smell a few satyrs. There were shimmering forms of spirits, too, as if the dead had risen from Hades to watch the battle. He heard the flap of leathery wings circling somewhere above. More sirens. He stepped further into the water, but Ares was fast. The tip of his blade ripped Percy's sleeve and glanced off his scales. A police voice on a megaphone said, "Drop the guns! Set them to the ground! Now!" He looked at Ares' weapon, and it seemed to be flickering. Sometimes it looked like a shotgun, sometimes a two-handed sword. He wondered what was in his own hands. Ares turned to glare at the spectators, which gave him a moment to breathe. There were 5 police cars now, and a line of officers crouching behind the vehicles, pistols trained on them. "This is a private matter," Ares bellowed. "Be gone!" He swept his hand, and a wall of red flames rolled across the patrol cars. The police barely had time to dive to cover before their vehicles exploded. The crowd behind them scattered, screaming. Ares roared with laughter. "Now, little hero, let's add you to the barbecue." He slashed. Percy deflected his blade. He slashed again, following Percy's deeper into the water. The rhythm of the sea matched his heartbeat. The waves grew larger as the tide rolled in. Percy unfurled his core. He pushed the water back, commanded it away. He was holding back the tide by force of will, but tension was building, like carbonation behind a cork. Ares came toward him, grinning confidently. Percy lowered his blade, as if he were too exhausted to go on. Wait. The pressure was almost lifting him off his feet. Wait. Ares raised his sword. Now! He released the tide and jumped, rocketing straight over Ares on a wave. A 6-foot wave of water smashed the god full in the face, leaving him cursing and sputtering with a mouthful of seawater. Something dark filled the air, ready to fill in. It was like stomping footsteps looming ever closer. The sun disappeared. Light faded. Sound and color drained away. A cold, heavy presence passed over the beach, slowing time, dropping the temperature to freezing. Life was hopeless. Fighting was useless. Percy couldn't accept that. Life was not hopeless. Fighting was not useless. He landed behind Ares with a splash and feigned towards his head as before. Ares turned in time to raise his sword, but this time he was disoriented, slowed. He didn't anticipate the trick. Percy changed direction, lunged to his other side, and stabbed Riptide straight into the god's ankle. The dark feeling dissipated. At the same moment, a roar that could have made a 5.1 magnitude earthquake look like a minor event occurred over the land. The very sea was blasted back from Ares, leaving a wet circle of sand 50 feet wide. Percy scrambled back, ready, but everything had shifted. Ares didn't get up immediately. His eyes, pained, shocked, in complete disbelief, were locked on the ichor, the gold blood of the gods spilling between his fingers, and he changed. Another man, another god, took his place. Percy made a noise of confusion. The smell of blood shifted to something warmer, almost earthier, like the dried blood of a promise between brothers, like the celebration between two leaders, like a well-fought battle had ended in peace. Cinnamon, fire, Jolly Ranchers, to just cinnamon. This new god was wearing a military uniform, hair spikier, longer. Ares' black shades were now a deep, crisp red, though he could still barely make out his flaming eyes behind them. Unbidden, his mother's stories filled his head, the Greek and Roman ones. He knew before the name even appeared in his head. The only god this might be was Mars? Percy tried in disbelief, and the world rippled. Elsewhere, the fates laughed at this turn. Surely not, Percy thought. Surely this is not how that worked. Surely this is not what his mother meant. Surely. The god's head snapped up. Son of the sea? War? Protector, the god corrected, standing slowly. Percy let his sword fall to his side, cautiously approaching at first and then moving faster when the god nearly stumbled. Protector first, Mars mumbled, almost like a reminder to himself. He accepted Percy's help, surprisingly, and placed a hand on the demigod's shoulder to steady himself. Are you okay? What happened to Ares? Mars tensed, his body spasming. For a moment, his grip on Percy's shoulder tightened, and Ares flickered back into view before Mars returned. Not right now, you bastard, Mars growled, shaking his head. You've done enough. Percy glanced over at his friends. Their eyes were glazed, similar to the mortals further up the beach. Even the Furies above seemed to have trouble watching them. The mist at work, then. Are you okay? He asked again. I don't know what that was, but I have a guess. I'm sure you do, Mars agreed. You broke his control. This should be impossible. You shouldn't even be able to process that I'm here. I don't like being told what to do, Percy said evenly. Mars laughed. It shook his shoulders, but unlike Ares' cruel bark, it was deeper and louder. But honestly, Percy didn't mind it. The crown of bones on his head was cleaner, inlaid with red ribbon and victory laurel. Mars grinned down at him. You're a good kid, he said. My other half is a rough mess, but a blessing on you for the help. I've got to go now. The helm is yours. Try to avoid mentioning anything Roman when you return the bolt. It'll save everyone the headache. Then he and Ares' bike was gone in a snap of fire. Hades' helm dropped to the floor, sinking slightly in the sand. Percy sheathed his sword and carefully picked up the weapon. The flapping of leathery wings loomed closer. 3 evil-looking grandmothers with lace hats and fiery whips drifted down from the sky and landed in front of him. The middle Fury, the one who had been Mrs. Dodds, stepped forward. Her fangs were bared, but for once she didn't look threatening. She looked more disappointed, as if she'd been tricked out of a good lunch. Please ensure this gets back to Lord Hades. Percy handed the helmet off, thankful to be rid of the chill it caused. She sniffed in return, but launched into the sky, her sisters at her side. They rose up and disappeared in a swirl of darkness. Percy knew in his gut that the helm had been returned not a few seconds later. A singular asphodel bloom spun into existence and floated gently above him. It brushed his nose, then tucked itself behind his ear. A bargain fulfilled. He joined Grover and Annabeth, who were staring at him in amazement. "Percy," Grover said, "that was so incredibly terrifying," Annabeth finished. "Cool," Grover corrected. Percy didn't feel any of those things, just the satisfaction of a job well done. He didn't mention anything else when they asked what happened, not wanting to go near the tangle of Mars's visit. He reclaimed his backpack from Grover. The master boat was still there, gleaming innocently, despite the mess it had made. "We have to get back to New York," he said, "and fast. What do we have? 2 days left?" "That's impossible," Annabeth said, "unless we—" "Fly," he agreed. He smiled when they looked at him like he was crazy. "Fly?" Annabeth said slowly. "Like in an airplane, which you were warned never to do, lest Lord Zeus strike you out of the sky, while carrying a weapon that has more destructive power than a nuclear bomb?" "Yep," he said, popping the pea. "Pretty much exactly like that. Come on. If Uncle Z does something while we're on the plane, carrying his precious bolt, well, that's on him, really." In the chaos Ares had left behind, they were able to disappear into the crowd. Percy spent the plane ride sleeping like the dead, courtesy of his exhaustion and a little medicine. He curled up into a small ball in his sweater and jacket and hugged his water bottle and the bottle to his chest. They touched down safely at LaGuardia and split up at the taxi stand. "Are you sure?" Grover asked for the 100th time. "Yes," he drawled, amused with their fussing. "He thinks I stole it, so I have to return it. And, well, if something goes wrong, you guys can tell Chiron the truth." 30 minutes later, he walked into the lobby of the Empire State Building. He'd managed to use a bit of the drizzle outside to clear off, so approaching the desk, he knew he must have looked like a kid who'd gotten separated from their tour group. 600th floor, please," the guard sighed, as if interrupting his reading was the greatest of travesties. "No such floor, kiddo. I need an audience with Zeus." He gave a vacant smile. "Sorry?" "You heard me." For a moment, Percy thought he might have to run for it, but then the guard actually put down his book and looked at him. His eyes landed on the pin Percy was wearing first. Then, in a panic, they shot to his own eyes. "I have an audience with Zeus," Percy responded, "and my father is expecting me." He was handed a keycard and given the instructions with no further questions. As soon as the elevator door closed, Percy slipped the key into the slot. The card disappeared, and a new button appeared on the console. A gold one that said 600. He pressed it and waited, and waited. Muzak played. "Raindrops keep falling on my head." Finally, ding, the door slid open. The first thing Percy noticed was the smell. It was 1,000 different smells, from tart to salty to sweet, each distinct, some overwhelming, some barely there. Humans smelt muted, though sometimes Percy would come across one that had a few strong smells like his mom. She never told him the reason for that. Just politely asked that should he run into anyone like that, give them her phone number. Probably had something to do with that help group she ran. But gods and demigods, monsters and immortals smelled different. They encompassed what they were, revealing parts of themselves to Percy without them ever saying a word. The path ahead of him branched off into several directions. The elevator had opened up into the heart of Olympus. An open-air market filled with colorful tents and several chattering people. Around them, towering above, were apartments and houses and temples and gardens. Even further in the distance was the decapitated peak of a mountain, its summit covered with snow. Clinging to the mountainside were dozens of multi-leveled palaces, a city of mansions, all with white columned porticos, glittering terraces, and bronze braziers glowing with 1,000 fires. An ancient Greek city with a modern flair, but not in ruins. The largest palace gleamed at the top, and Percy knew that was where he needed to go. He wound his way through the crowds, ignoring the whispers and pointed fingers with the ease of any New Yorker worth their salt. As he passed through, he could make out other buildings, more stores, more temples, even a giant amphitheater and an arena. The palace was the antithesis to Hades' own, though he hadn't gone to see much of it. There, everything had been black and bronze. Here, everything glittered white and gold. Hades must have built his place to resemble this one. He did not have a throne room nor a temple here. What had he said? That no member of his family would have helped him with his helm? The unfairness of it was overwhelming. Forget visiting to swim in the Styx. Maybe Uncle wouldn't mind him spending winter break down there. Steps led up to a central courtyard. Past that, the throne room. Massive columns rose to a domed ceiling, which was glittered with moving constellations. 12 thrones, built from the 10-feet-tall form the gods were fond of, were arranged in an inverted U, just like the cabins at Camp Half-Blood. An enormous fire crackled in the central hearth pit. The thrones were not empty. His father and Zeus were arguing in rapid-fire ancient Greek at the end of the hall. 10 other beings sat in their assigned decorated chairs, and a 13th flickered by the hearth. The little girl from camp smiled gently at him before she disappeared into the flame. Dionysius acknowledged him first. The god heaved a long, giant sigh that Percy could almost call relieved. The tilt of his Diet Coke can in greeting caught Hermes' attention from across the way. The god glanced up from his phone. That genuine, unused smile spread across his face at the sight of him. He outwardly looked relieved. Percy waved. From there, it was a ripple effect. Hermes' greeting back caught the woman who smelled like roses' attention, and her shifting caused the man tinkering with something in his lap to look. The one who smelled like bay laurels, Apollo, noticed him at the same time a woman who seemed to be his opposite did. The god waved enthusiastically with a bright smile. Artemis's head turn caused the woman who looked like Annabeth to catch sight of him. She glared. As if sensing the change in his siblings, Ares looked away from the two fighting gods. When his eyes locked onto him, the god of war joined Athena in glaring something fierce. He sneered something along the lines of, "Crazy child." The one who smelled like Katie, Demeter, gazed at him curiously. To her right was the queen of the gods, Hera. She said something, gesturing to him, and the two arguing gods fell silent. They returned to their chairs, still glaring. Poseidon's face softened when he looked at him. A tension in his shoulders eased. His eyes trailed to the flower tucked behind Percy's ear, and the blue-green flared in amusement. Just because Percy could, he greeted his father first. "Should you not address the master of the house first, boy?" "Peace, brother," Poseidon urged. "It is only right for the son to defer to the father." Percy could tell, though, that despite attempting to soothe Percy's transgression, the god was pleased. "You will still claim him, then?" Zeus asked, menacingly. "You claim this child whom you sired against our sacred oath?" "I will not hear it from you," Poseidon said, his voice just as cold. "No, I would hear him speak." "I have spared him once already," Zeus grumbled. "Daring to fly through my domain. Pah! I should have blasted him out of the sky for his impotence." "And risk destroying your own master bolt?" Hera said calmly. "Let us hear him out." Zeus grumbled some more. "I shall listen," he decided. "Then I shall make up my mind whether or not to cast this boy down from Olympus." Poseidon's darkening expression said he would do no such thing either way. Percy carefully pulled the bolt from his bag and placed it at Zeus's feet. He began his tale, cutting out any mention of the Roman gods. There was a long silence when he finished, broken only by the crackle of the hearth fire. Zeus opened his palm. The lightning bolt flew into it. As he closed his fist, the metallic points flared with electricity, until he was holding what looked more like a classic thunderbolt, a 15-foot javelin of arcing, hissing energy. "I sense the boy is telling the truth," Zeus muttered, then louder, "Ares, what say you to this accusation?" Ares stood from his throne and bowed before his father. "The boy speaks the truth," he confirms. Percy was surprised he hadn't lied, but knew he shouldn't be. Ares was not just war, after all. The gods were never just one thing. The tension in the room built. Zeus's rage crackled in the air, but Ares did nothing as lightning began to spit at his feet. The others were silent, weary. "It was grandfather," Percy spoke, breaking through the ozone. He took a step in front of the kneeling god. "Ares is not truly to blame. He was tricked." Ares jerked. Percy could feel the fire of his eyes on the side of his face, but he did not look. Zeus stared at him, looked at him for the first time, taking in the water kaleidoscope eyes, and the stubborn press of his lips, and the flower tucked in his hair. Percy met his gaze just as intensely. Bull horns jutted from Zeus's head, eagle feathers tucked behind them. His crown was shaped out of jagged silver lightning, and it spat and hissed as it pleased. Eyes like storm clouds flickered in the light. His hair was a thick and curly black that tumbled down his back, the ends disappearing like wispy clouds. He had a short beard. The suit he was wearing shifted into a long white chiton with golden edges. A purple himation draped over his shoulders. A thick gold belt lay across his waist, adorned with white amethyst quartz and crafted oak leaf designs. "Strange," Zeus whispered, haunted. "You look like her." Poseidon stood. Whatever strange mood Zeus had fallen into disappeared. "Ares," he boomed, "I will decide what to do with you later. Be gone from my sight." The god did not argue. He disappeared in a snap of fire and light. Percy felt like his eyes were still seared onto the side of his head. "And you," Zeus said, not looking at him, "speak not of what you do not understand. I will hear none of it." "You will turn from a threat?" Percy asked in disbelief. "He is rising. He will be coming here. You will do nothing?" The air crackled. "Watch your tone, boy," Zeus warned. "Do not presume to fly again. Do not let me find you here when I return. Otherwise you shall taste this bolt, and it shall be your last sensation." Thunder shook the palace. With a blinding flash of light, Zeus was gone. Percy shook his head and turned to his father. "Grandfather is coming," he insisted. "Will he really do nothing?" "Perhaps he will see reason later," Poseidon said. "I think we both know he won't." Poseidon did not answer. "You spoke in Ares' defense," a new voice interrupted. "Lady Hera," Percy greeted neutrally, eyes still on his dad. Poseidon's eyes narrowed. They fixed on Hera, like he was trying to work out her intentions. "It wasn't his fault. Not fully," Percy explained. "The voice I heard, I could see how someone would find it tempting." "Oh?" Hera's head tilted, her eyes gleaming. For a moment, he could see a mention of horns on her head, a wreath of peacock feathers and lilies, and beautiful soft green veil draped over her hair. It was gone just as quick. "And you did not find the voice tempting?" Percy's nose wrinkled in disgust. "I didn't like it. It was too fake, and he smelled bad, like excessively bad." Percy paused for a moment to think. "He smelled like someone I knew, actually, though it's more of a feeling," he finally said. "Full of hate, anger, and the want to hurt. Like a dark, dusty closet in some forgotten hallway. Stomping footsteps and cracked bottles. If that makes sense." Poseidon tensed. They were all looking at Percy carefully, like they weren't quite sure what to make of that. "I see," Hera murmured softly. She addressed the room. "The quest has been completed per the terms set. I am formally ending this emergency meeting. Everyone is now free to return to their everyday tasks." Her words echoed with the power of the queen. Several of the gods disappeared with one last look at the demigod child within their midst. Poseidon paused, waiting. "Poseidon," Hera said, "please escort your son off of Olympus. I do believe Zeus will not be back for a few hours." Poseidon's eyes lit up. "Thank you, sister," he murmured. Hera nodded and disappeared in a breeze of feathers. In the empty throne room, Percy's father swooped him into his arms and made for the hallway behind his throne. He followed a winding river-like path to a large house, a mansion on the edge of a large, cloud-like lake surrounded by pine trees. The mansion was built like a temple, the walls a misty blue-green, with 4 large gray-white marble columns framing the entrance. 2 braziers framed the large blue door. Above the door, on the pediment, was a large trident that glowed faintly, like the symbol that had appeared on Percy's head when he was claimed. Around it were carvings, the Titanarchy, the Gigantomachy, other stories Percy recognized from his mother's tales. The doors opened the moment Poseidon's foot touched the porch. "Nosy family," he muttered. Percy waved at whoever had followed them until the door sealed them in. "My boy," Poseidon said, shrinking to a more reasonable 6 feet tall and relaxing now that no one could see them. He pressed their foreheads together, a hand tangled in Percy's hair. "My pearl, you did so well." "Thank you," Percy said. He tilted his head to examine the house. Despite the exterior, the interior resembled a beach cabin in Montauk. An open concept with wooden floors and walls. Directly in front of the entryway was a large pool of salt water, similar to the cabin at camp. To the left, a comfy living room with a large plush blue couch and a purple love seat surrounded a wooden stove, woven rugs, and dark wooden furniture. Big, stained glass windows let in gentle light despite there being no windows on the other side. To the right of the pool was a kitchen with pale yellow wooden cabinets and a 4-seater blue table. The more Percy looked at it, the more it really resembled the cabin in Montauk, minus the pool. Poseidon chuckled. He moved from curiously examining the flower in Percy's hair to looking around. "I met your mother on that beach," he grinned. "I have many fond memories there, and I find peace in the reminder. Are you hungry? When was the last time you ate?" Percy's lips twitched. "I'm not very hungry, but I would like some water." Poseidon nodded in understanding, moving forward. He held him out like he was going to put him down gently, eyes glittering, and he dropped Percy right into the pool. Percy broke water, sputtering to the sound of Poseidon's rich laugh. "Ancient ritual," Poseidon grinned, and then dove in. Percy barely managed to move before the god hit the water and sent waves crashing into the rest of the house. "You're ridiculous," he informed the god when he resurfaced. "I'm just owning you." "I'm your father," the god gleefully told him. "You will not ever escape me." Percy sighed, like that was the worst fate in the world. He floated around a bit, periodically diving to look at the coral reefs and the seaweed forest below. Poseidon stayed close, always appearing within a few feet of him when he wandered. He continuously herded Percy back towards the surface whenever he didn't like how far he had gone. Percy got the hint eventually. He returned back to the edge of the pool. "Who did he mean?" Percy asked. He folded his arms on the edge and looked over at his father, eyes a clear blue to match the pool he floated in. Poseidon closed his eyes. "Who do I look like?" "What ghost do you see when you look at me?" he wanted to ask. His father sighed. "You look like her," he echoed Zeus's statement. "Our mother, your grandmother. Rhea. She has not visited in a long time." "Where is she?" he asked curiously. "You couldn't visit her?" A sad smile played on his father's face. "I wish we could," he said wistfully, "but she disappeared years ago and has not been seen since. Sometimes there are moments where one of us feel her, like she's looking in on us, but those moments never last long." "Do you think she's trapped somewhere?" No, Poseidon assured. "We would know if she was. She is just traveling." Percy was quiet. "I can feel your judgment from here," Poseidon teased, chuckling at Percy's face. "She could visit you," he murmured. "She's your mother. A mother visits her children. And I don't mean just breezing over you all. I mean truly visit. Stop by for some tea and cookies. Maybe some gossip. Just to talk." A smile played on Poseidon's lips. "Obedience and respect do not come naturally to you, does it?" Percy stuck out his tongue. Respect is earned. I got nothing for the obedience part. I must take some blame for that, I suppose, Poseidon mused. The sea does not like to be restrained, and it respects no one. In the distance there was an echo of thunder. Poseidon frowned. It is time to go, he said. Percy frowned too, but pulled himself out of the pool. Mother? He asked. She has been returned as agreed upon. Hades does not back out of his deals. And will I see you again? Yes, Poseidon answered immediately. As long as you will have me. You're my little prince of the sea. And the sea does not abandon its own. Come, take my hand and close your eyes. When you open them, you will be with your mother. And please, his eyes glittered in remembrance, try not to give me any more gray hairs. I fear they will become permanent as you grow. Percy smiled. I don't think I can promise that, he said, but I'll try to avoid that pit, if that's what you mean. I will see you later, and Percy took his hand. As if he stepped into a small drizzle, water coated him. When he opened his eyes, he stood in front of his mother's apartment. The smell of peppermint, licorice, and cookies washed over him. The weariness and worry evaporated from her face as soon as she saw him. Percy! Oh, thank goodness! Oh, my baby! She crushed the air right out of him. They stood in the hallway as she cried and ran her hands through his hair, gently touching the flower. Relief weighed Percy down, his eyes misted. He was shaking. He was so relieved. So long had he held back his worry, his fear. It surfaced now, and she drew him into the apartment so they could curl up close on the couch. She told him she just appeared at the apartment that morning. She didn't remember anything since the Minotaur. She had been going out of her mind with worry all day because she hadn't heard any news. He told her his own story about the camp, the quest, the pit, the fight, the gods. He left nothing out. Not the way he could see the gods, not the girl, not even Mars. When he finished, they sat in silence. She collected her thoughts and looked at him. Percy, she said, my boy, how much you have grown. You found a place to spread out, he smiled. Will you return, she asked quieter. He didn't need her to explain. Will you return to me? I will always find my way home, he answered. Always back to you. Maybe with some friends, but for now, I think it's time for you to spread out too. I know you've been saving up. You should go to college, get your degree. You can write your novel, meet a nice guy maybe, live in a nice house. You don't need to protect me from my world anymore. Besides, the story is not over yet. There was one last thing that needs to happen. She smiled tearfully, then helped him pack and sent him on his way with blue cookies and a kiss on the forehead. Percy returned to camp to find Annabeth and Grover and celebrations waiting for him. They were the first heroes to return alive to Half-Blood Hill since Luke. They wore laurel wreaths to a big feast prepared in their honor, then led a procession down to the bonfire where they got to burn their burial shrouds. Their cabins had made for them in their absence. Annabeth's shroud was so beautiful, gray silk with embroidered owls. It was almost a shame she wouldn't be buried in it. She had punched him and told him to shut up for the comment. As he had no cabin mates, the Ares cabin had stepped up. They'd taken an old bedsheet and painted smiley faces with X'd out eyes around the border, and the word loser painted really big in the middle. Percy watched it burn with a gleeful smile, and he waited. Days passed. Camp returned to normal life. Percy went back to training, back to bothering Dionysius, back to convincing Chiron to build more cabins, and back to pissing off the Ares campers just because he could. He traded letters with his mom about their plans, and burned some to Hades with random rambles. Hades never wrote back, but every time he sent one, a small undying asphodel would appear on his cabin. He strung them together and started lining them along the roof like Christmas lights. The 4th of July passed with fireworks and goodbyes. Grover had succeeded in his wish and went off to find Pan. Despite the fact that no searcher had ever come back in 2,000 years, Percy knew Grover would be the first. He had to be. Cabin 3 filled with life. He spread out a bit more. More furniture appeared. Bookshelves packed with books and plants and plush rugs, and a couch for Percy to curl up on. Little knickknacks, gifts would appear on the shelves. Shells and pearls and sand dollars, like Poseidon was making up for the years he couldn't give him anything big. He put the Minotaur horn on a little stand next to the Chimera poison dart and the tusk of Ares' boar, which had tried to strike him down. His asphodel flower was carefully set on his nightstand. And Percy waited. The last night of the summer session came all too quickly. The campers had one last meal together. They burned their dinner for the gods. At the bonfire, the senior counselors awarded the end of summer beads. Percy got his own leather necklace. The design was pitch black with a sea green trident shimmering in the center. The choice was unanimous, Luke announced. This bead commemorates the first son of the sea god at this camp, and the quest he undertook into the darkest part of the underworld to stop a war. The entire camp got to their feet and cheered. Even Ares' cabin felt obliged to stand. Athena's cabin steered Annabeth to the front so she could share in the applause. Percy smiled, waited. The next morning, Percy crumpled up the form letter and tucked his asphodel flower behind his ear. He wandered around camp, watching the chaos. All the campers were in their cabins packing up, or running around with brooms and mops, getting ready for final inspection. He ended up in the arena, where Luke was training. He was working solo, wheeling on battle dummies with a sword that smelled like darkness and terror. Percy approached, eyeing it wearily. "Percy!" Luke greeted, pausing in his destruction. "Just wanted to say hi, and bye," Percy smiled. "Are you deciding to go home?" Percy shrugged. Luke snorted, grinning. He noticed Percy's eyes on his sword and lifted it into the light. "New toy! This is Backbiter." "Backbiter?" The blade glittered wickedly. "One side is celestial bronze, the other is tempered steel. Works on mortals and immortals, both." Percy's stomach flip-flopped. "I didn't know they could make weapons like that." "They probably can't," Luke agreed. "It's one of a kind." He gave him a tiny smile, then slid the sword into its scabbard. "Listen, I was going to come looking for you. What do you say we go down to the woods one last time, look for something to fight?" Percy paused. "Father," he thought, "something is about to happen, and I'm not sure I'm equipped to deal with it." Despite being so far from the beach, Percy could hear the waves. "Ah," Luke said, holding up a six-pack of Cokes. "Come on." Percy followed Luke. They walked down to the woods and kicked around for some kind of monster to fight. But it was too hot. They found a shady spot near the creek where he'd broken Clarice's spear. They sat on a big rock further from the water in the peaceful quiet and watched the sunlight in the woods. "You miss being on a quest?" Luke asked. "With monsters attacking me every 3 feet? Are you kidding?" Luke raised an eyebrow. "Not the monsters. The lessons, the history maybe? Yeah," he admitted. "Do you?" A shadow passed over his face. In that moment, Luke's handsome face twisted into something angry. "I've lived at Half-Blood Hill year-round since I was 14, he told Percy. "Ever since Thalia, well, you know. I trained and trained and trained. I never got to be a normal teenager, out there in the real world. Then they threw me on one quest, and when I came back, it was like, oh, ride's over, have a nice life." He crumbled up the Coke can in his hand and chucked it into the creek. Percy watched it hit the water and cause ripples with a frown. "You learn pretty quickly not to litter at Camp Half-Blood, and it went against everything Percy was to throw trash in any body of water." He curved one of his fingers, coaxing the water to push the can up to the shore where he'd get it later. Luke noticed none of this, brooding. "The heck with laurel wreaths," he said. "I'm not going to end up like those dusty trophies in the big house attic." "You make it sound like you're leaving." Luke gave him a twisted smile. "Oh, I'm leaving all right, Percy. I brought you down here to say goodbye." "Luke?" He snapped his fingers. A small fire burned a hole in the ground at Percy's feet. Out crawled something glistening black, about the size of his hand. A scorpion. Percy froze, feeling the poison within the creature. "I wouldn't move," Luke cautioned. "Pit scorpions can jump up to 15 feet. Its stinger can pierce right through your clothes. You'll be dead in 30 seconds. "Luke, why?" He stood calmly and brushed off his jeans. The scorpion paid him no attention. It kept his beady black eyes on Percy. clamping its pincers as it crawled up his shoe. I saw a lot out there in the world, Percy, Luke said. Didn't you feel it? The darkness gathering, the monsters growing stronger? Didn't you realize how useless it all is? All the heroics, being pawns of the gods, getting blamed for something you didn't do, being sent on a glorified fetch quest. They should have been overthrown thousands of years ago, but they've hung on, thanks to us half-bloods. Luke looked at him. In his eyes, something else looked out. You could join me, his voice melodic. We could do it together. I see that look in your eyes, Percy. Sometimes you appear more than them, but you hold yourself back. You contain yourself. Wouldn't you like to spread out? Wouldn't you like to see what you could really do? No, Percy thought fiercely, shaking off the hypnotic words. The scorpion crawled onto his pant leg. Grandfather is not the answer, he answered. You're being brainwashed. Luke's eye twitched. You're wrong. He showed me that my talents are being wasted. You know what my quest was 2 years ago, Percy? My father, Hermes, wanted me to steal a golden apple from the Garden of the Hesperides and return it to Olympus. After all the training I've done, that was the best he could think of. That's not an easy quest, Percy argued. Hercules did it, but even he struggled. Exactly, Luke sneered. Where's the glory in repeating what others have done? All the gods know how to do is replay their past. My heart wasn't in it. The dragon in the garden gave me this. He pointed angrily at his scar. And when I came back, all I got was pity. I wanted to pull Olympus down stone by stone right then, but I bided my time. I began to dream of Kronos. He convinced me to steal something worthwhile, something no hero had ever had the courage to take. When we went on that winter solstice field trip, while the other campers were asleep, I snuck into the throne room and took Zeus's master bolt right from his chair. Hades' helm of darkness, too. You wouldn't believe how easy it was. The Olympians are so arrogant. They never dreamed someone would dare steal from them. Their security is horrible. I was halfway across New Jersey before they discovered my theft. The scorpion was sitting on Percy's knee now, staring at him with its glittering eyes. He tried not to pay it attention, tried not to focus on the venom swirling within it. The wind was a tumbleweed of different things, sorrow, fear, surprise, all coalescing to one thing, rage. So why didn't you bring the item to him then? Luke's smile wavered. I got overconfident. Zeus sent out his sons and daughters to find the stolen bolt. Artemis, Apollo, my father Hermes. But it was Ares who caught me. I could have beaten him, but I wasn't careful enough. He disarmed me, took the items of power, threatened to return to Olympus and burn me alive. Then Kronos' voice came to me and told me what to say. I put the idea in Ares' head about a great war between the gods. I said all he had to do was hide the items away for a while and watch the others fight. Ares got a wicked gleam in his eyes. I knew he was hooked. He let me go, and I returned to Olympus before anyone noticed my absence. Luke drew his new sword. He ran his thumb down the flat of the blade, as if he were hypnotized by its beauty. Afterward, the Lord of the Titans, he punished me with nightmares. I swore not to fail again. Back at Camp Half-Blood, in my dreams, I was told a second hero would arrive. One who could be tricked into taking the bolt and the helm the rest of the way. From Ares down to Tartarus. Percy felt like he was near choking as the air tightened. You summoned the Hellhound that night in the forest, he pushed out. We had to make Chiron think the camp wasn't safe for you, so he would start you on your quest. We had to confirm his fears that Hades was after you, and it worked. The flying shoes were accursed, Percy continued. They were supposed to drag me and the backpack into Tartarus, except... For a moment he was looking at old Luke. The Luke who'd sat beside him his first night at camp, ready for the nightmares. The Luke who told Clarice to back off after the toilet fight. The Luke who hadn't gone anywhere when he'd been claimed. The Luke Percy considered his friend. His eyes were like haunted tragedies. I didn't think you'd give him to Grover. You will be betrayed by one who calls you a friend. It was like a few things shattered then. Percy had suspected this was coming. It didn't hurt any less. Call off the bug, Luke, Percy said, voice cracking. Please don't do this. But his eyes hardened, and he wasn't the Luke Percy knew anymore. Maybe Percy never really knew him at all. "What have the gods ever done for us?" he quietly asked. "Just look at Thalia. The gods let her die. Did you know how many children I have comforted? How many go unclaimed even though their parent is obvious? How many leave and never come back? I have burned so many shrouds. It feels like my hands are a graveyard because I just keep losing." "Things can change," Percy blinked back his tears. "Yes," Luke agreed. "This is how they will change. Kronos will bring change." "No!" "Goodbye, Percy," Luke said. "I truly wish you had chosen to be on my side." He slashed his sword in an arc and disappeared in a ripple of darkness. The scorpion lunged. Percy swatted it away with his hand and uncapped his sword. The thing jumped at him again and he cut in half in midair. But he knew he'd been caught. He felt the venom enter his system. He could feel it crawling up his arm once more. 60 seconds. He stumbled to the water, almost tumbling off the rocks. Urged on by the strawberries and chamomile and pomegranates and bay leaves and other smells he didn't yet recognize. Every step felt like he was trudging through wet sand. His vision was getting dark and his forehead burned. From the distance he could hear the clomping of hooves, but it echoed weirdly. Perhaps he just imagined it. His knees gave out. He coughed, and blood spluttered to the ground in front of him. The water, someone urged. Get to the water. He was so close. In the final moments of his strength, he pushed himself forward and fell. It wasn't enough to submerge him, but his fingers brushed something cold and wet. Then he knew nothing but darkness. Percy was pleasantly surprised to find himself waking. A straw was stuck between his lips, a silent order to drink. He followed. He opened his eyes. He was propped up in a bed in the sick room of the big house, his right hand bandaged like a club. Argus stood guard in the corner, and Dionysius was leaning against the door frame, with a large frown on his face. Annabeth sat next to him, holding the nectar glass. "Sup," he greeted. "You idiot," Annabeth said, ecstatic to see him conscious. "You were green and turning gray when Chiron got to you. If it weren't for your father and Chiron's healing—" Now, Chiron's voice said. "I'd say Percy's constitution deserves some of the credit." Percy snorted. "You mean my stubbornness not to die?" he grumbled. From the door, Dionysius muttered in agreement. Chiron was sitting near the foot of his bed, in human form. His lower half was magically compact into the wheelchair. His upper half, dressed in a coat and tie, he smiled, but his face looked weary and pale. "How are you feeling?" he asked. "Like my insides have been frozen, then microwaved." "Apt, considering that was pit scorpion venom. Now you must tell me, if you can, exactly what happened." Percy relayed his story, watching the room grow more and more tense. Dionysius' form flickered throughout the tale. "I cannot believe that Luke—" Annabeth's voice faltered, her expression turned angry, and she said, Yes, I can believe it. May the gods curse him. He was never the same after his quest." "This must be formally reported to Olympus," Chiron murmured. "I'll go at once." "They are already aware," Percy croaked, "and extremely angry." "More than angry," Dionysius spoke up, his voice hovering in the air. "Just about the whole country got slammed by several different natural disasters. We don't like being tricked." Annabeth and Chiron winced, and even Argus in the corner grimaced. "Ah," Percy said weakly, "I will make sure to send Uncle H an apology." Dionysius snorted. He and Chiron seemed to be holding a silent conversation before the god went off grumbling about reporting back to Olympus. Chiron turned back to Percy. "Be sure to reach out to your father," he advised, "and do not rush out to find Luke. At this point, he is not an opponent you are ready to face." "Will they even do anything?" Percy asked quietly. "I know you're not saying something. I know it has to do with your prophecy. The king declared the matter closed." "The gods have their reasons, Percy, and I cannot speak more on the prophecy," Chiron sighed. "But even if they decide to do nothing, we will not sit back. You must be careful. The Titan King wants you to come unraveled. He wants your life disrupted, your thoughts clouded with fear and anger. Do not give him what he wants. Train patiently." "I have already made my decision." Chiron sighed again, but nodded. He rolled back. "I will be joining Dionysius on Olympus. Please try to rest. Even with your healing, pit scorpion venom is no joke. Argus will watch over you until we return. He glanced at Annabeth. Oh, and, my dear, whenever you're ready, they're here. Chiron rolled himself out of the door. Annabeth studied the ice in Percy's drink. What's wrong? Percy asked her. Nothing, she said, glass on the table. I just kept thinking about something you said. You, need anything? I'd like to go back to my cabin. Percy, that isn't a good idea. He slid his leg out of bed. Annabeth caught him before he could crumble to the floor. A wave of nausea hit him. Annabeth said, I told you. My cabin will help, he insisted. There's a pool. It's salt water. He managed to step forward, then another, still leaning heavily on Annabeth. Argus followed them outside, but he kept his distance. It was dusk. The camp looked completely deserted. The other cabins were dark and the volleyball pit silent. No canoes cut the surface of the lake. Beyond the woods and the strawberry fields, the Long Island Sound glittered with the last light of the sun. They paused off the porch steps. What are you going to do? Annabeth asked. You said you had made your decision. I'm returning home, he admitted. I know it's not what Chiron would suggest, but it's where I need to go. Another feeling? He nodded. And you, who's waiting for you? She pointed towards the crest of Half-Blood Hill. Next to Thalia's pine tree, at the very edge of the camp's magical boundaries, a family stood silhouetted. 2 little children, a woman, and a tall man with blonde hair. I'm going home for the year. The way you talked about your mother, it inspired me. I wrote him a letter when we got back. I told him I was sorry. I'd come home for the school year if he wanted me. He wrote back immediately. We decided we'd give it another try. That took guts. She shrugged. They continued their slow shuffle. You wouldn't try anything stupid during the school year, will you? At least, not without sending me an iris message? He managed to smile. Trouble generally finds me, he joked, but I promise you'll be the first to know. If things with your dad go sour, send me a message. You can always hang out at mine. When we get back next summer, she said smiling, we'll hunt down Luke. We'll ask for a quest, but if we don't get approval, we'll sneak off and do it anyway. Agreed? Sounds like a plan. The doors of his cabin loomed closer. She held out her hand. He shook it. Take care, seaweed brain, Annabeth told him. Keep your eyes open. You too, wise girl. He watched her walk up the hill and join her family. She gave her father an awkward hug and looked back at the valley one last time. She touched Thalia's pine tree, then allowed herself to be led over the crest and into the mortal world. For the first time at camp, Percy was truly alone. He wished Argus good night and closed the door. In the morning, he would pack his bags and make his way home. For now, he dropped into the cabin's pool and fell asleep cradled by the sea.